Story 1. When I was 30 and my wife was pregnant, I decided to switch jobs and go to school before my kids were old enough to know we were poor. Edit. Wow, much love. I didn't think it would resonate like that. Thanks. Story 2. In 1982, I went into rehabilitation for alcohol and cocaine abuse. To this day, I have not touched even a drop of alcohol or cocaine. I am now 60. I was 23 when I entered rehab and had started drinking heavily at 17. Cocaine entered my life at 19, and I went downhill very quickly. If I were to say one thing that was most responsible for keeping me sober, it would be the fact that I have always told my story. I tell it often to anyone who will listen. Story 3. At 31, my longtime girlfriend broke up with me shortly after my dad and brother both passed away. It was a very tough few months, to say the least, and I was very aimless and lonely. Due to all of this happening and not being able to afford my rent alone, I had two choices: to go back to live with my mom or move across the country where I had some friends living and rent a room in a shared house. I picked the latter option, as there were no prospects back home with my mom. There, I started a career in information technology, had to bluff massively in the interview, but I got the job, which I now love and am actually quite good at. I met my now wife, and we have just had a baby daughter. So, the worst year of my life actually turned out to be the year I got my life together. Before then, I was just floating, living to work, and unhappy. I'm 35 now, in love with my wife and daughter, and have a great career ahead of me. Story 4. Had highs and lows but always stayed true to myself, so I never really felt like it wasn't together. You can be a 25-year-old couch surfer and have your life more together than a 25-year-old stable career man. Story 5. Grew up very poor and from a troubled family, so I vowed I would never live that kind of life. Now 30, with a great job and family and zero debt. Story 6. Tomorrow. I have a career, a nice home, nice vehicle, good-looking family, large social circle, travel often, etc. All of the trappings of having my life together. But because of my past life of neglect, abuse, drug addiction, homelessness, messed up relationships, and so on, I still feel as if I am just getting past the starting gates. It is hard to measure my success from my own starting point when I see others for whom life has been much easier, achieving quite a bit more than I have, and with such ease. I have to actively celebrate my achievements and acknowledge their validity. So in my own mind, I always feel as if I will have my life together tomorrow, as if it is right around the corner, even though I have a fantastic life today. Story 7. I am 26 and finally realized that I was selfish and lazy. I always had someone help me fix my problems and never did it alone because my willpower is weak. I was only good at getting high, getting drunk, blaming others, lying, and being selfish. But it's time to change that because my decisions and my thinking are like a child's mind. I know it isn't going to change overnight, but I am going to try. Story 8. Read a lot of books on life advice and wisdom. Someone told me to stop doing the things that aren't helping you achieve your goals. I quit video games cold turkey and did a lot of thinking. I take a few hours every week to go for a walk or sit and meditate. This thinking time is absolutely critical for realigning yourself with your goals and figuring out what you really want from life. It should be like brushing your teeth, honestly. It's also the age I started to really express my true self instead of putting on an act. I came to believe I was worthy of love as my true self, instead of the person I act as. Suddenly I get a lot more attention from women, and have the patience and wisdom to not settle for a bad match. I have clear vision and goals, and truly enjoy the journey part instead of only focusing on the end goal. I just advise anyone to read books about life skills. Story 9. I don't think most of us have our lives together, but I think we are all in that place where we are getting by. We have our family, friends, internet friends, game friends, jobs, and whatnot. We get by in life using what we have and what we have been given. We may not be as successful as some, and we may have been dealt a bad hand in life and will never have our lives completely together. But we push through, enjoy the little things, and try to overcome bigger challenges. So no, I do not have my life completely together. I do not know if I'll ever be able to afford a house for my family, a brand new car, or if I will have to be afraid of losing my job, or if I'll ever get my diploma. But I do have two little girls who love me and my significant other who helped me not fall into a pit of despair, and that is enough for me. And one day I'll be able to say, I got my life together. Story 10. When I was 15 and found out I was pregnant, I was homeless. She is now nearly 10, we live in a flat that I own, and I am ridiculously happily married with two more children. I never would have imagined that I would get to this point, especially if I had known everything I would have to do to get here, but I consider my life pretty together given where I started. Edit. Apologies, I didn't realize the subreddit I was on. I am not a mother. Story 11. The thing is, you never fully get it together. Or if you do, it falls apart again. That is the nature of life. Growth is not linear. Just because you have setbacks does not mean all your growth prior to that is nullified. You are not at square one again. Story 12. Had my act together once, a bunch of times. Now is just not one of them. 39, and it's been a wild ride so far. Wherever you're at in life, just remember one thing. Life can change at a moment's notice. It's what you do when you're behind the game that makes a man who he is. Keep your heads up out there. Story 13. I'm 32 and I need to get mine together for the most part. What I've come to realize is that when you're younger, at least for me, I always believed there was this set way to do life. Go to college, find a career, get married, etc. But it's not like that at all. Something that drives me crazy is when others think that because you're not doing things like everyone else, you're doing life wrong. Like there's some rule book on how you're supposed to do things. And if you don't abide by those rules, you're going to be a failure or some other nonsense. So in the end, do what makes you happy. Even if it's getting your life together at 40, 45, or whenever. Story 14, bad news, guys. It's not linear. You can get it together and maintain it for a while, but it will fall apart, and then you have to get it together again. Then it will go sideways, and again, you will have to get it together. It's a cycle, not a finish line. See, things happen. An accident, a job loss, a disease, a natural disaster, a breakup, a tragedy. Some big, some small. Some will threaten your savings, home, livelihood, and quality of life. You get set back sometimes, hopefully not too far back, and hopefully you have built your proverbial home out of bricks. But no matter how deep your pockets or stable your mindset, there are some things that could happen that will not prevent you from having to crawl out of a deep hole or perhaps never recovering. The loss of a child, the challenge of cancer, or getting sick in the United States, which will bankrupt you, the suicide of a spouse, the hurricane that destroyed your house, the drunk driver that put you in a wheelchair. Stability is transient. Story 15. Probably about a year ago, I went through a rough patch that resulted in me doing nothing but sitting in my room, smoking weed, and drinking all day. Eventually, I got kicked out of university because I didn't bother with anything. I moved back in with my family, where I stayed with them for a few months before I got kicked out for pretty much the same reasons. I moved in with my sister, and I just remember seeing myself one day and being disgusted at what happened to me. I got off my seat, started going to the gym, gave up weed, got a job, returned to university, and joined the Army Reserve with the intention of joining the regulars after I graduate. Honestly, I haven't been happier since I basically hit rock bottom a couple of years back. Story 16, Caspar is right. Because it depends on what situation you have together for the life you want to live at the moment. I spent most of my 20s single and I had my act together for that, usually. Was way too poor a couple of times, but things happen. Met my now ex-wife at the end of my 20s and had my act together with her help and guidance, enough for a family at around 32. That lasted most of her childhood. Got laid off once and came very close to losing the house. Got divorced. Had it together enough to be a dad for that. But did need to put my emotional state back in order to move on in life, which I did this last year. So it depends, really. Story 17. I'm turning 16 in a month. I think I finally know what I want to do, and unlike most people my age, I am starting right now. I'm working on video editing and a YouTube channel for a large online presence on one side, and learning information technology and penetration testing on the other side. I managed to lose 12 kilograms this year. Story 18, currently 25, wouldn't say my life is together at all. However, it's slowly looking up. Who knows what could happen tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, but I'm excited. My life might not be together right now, but I'm happy where I am and I'm happy with my life. Story 19. I went to a therapist and I have been doing so for 5 years. I still have anxiety sometimes, but I'm much better at fighting it. In the meantime, I built up my self-esteem, learned how to set boundaries with some of my relatives, and understood why I had trouble asking women out. It was last year's existential revelation, actually. All in all, I learned how to take good care of myself in ways other than food or beer. Story 20. Had a career figured out and running by 28. Got my mortgage and condominium at 35. Went to therapy for the first time at 36. Currently 41. Going to say about age 38, things started falling into place. Story 21. I was 28. I left a bad abusive relationship, went back home to my parents, and basically started rehabbing my life. Got out of debt, paid off some things. Went back to school. Finished my bachelor's degree. Now I'm not too far from my Doctor of Philosophy degree. Got a girlfriend smarter than me who is easily the best person to ever grace my life. Going to marry the hell out of her as soon as I can. Story 22. This year at 26. Got my life together. I mean, this year I became completely independent of my parents, right before my 26th birthday. I rent a beautiful 2-bedroom home with the love of my life, have 2 cats and 1 dog, make $68,000 a year after taxes, lease a brand new car, and pay 100% of my own bills, and still am able to save about $1,000 a month to eventually buy my own home. This is the first time in my life I actually feel like I'm in a good spot. To top this off, I have $0 in student loan debt. Life is good right now, finally. Story 23. I recently turned 20 and I'm having a job interview on Monday. I am currently studying computer science. I hope it will be the starting point of getting my life together. Story 24. What does getting your life together mean? Is it universal? Aren't we all just trying to wing it every day? I mean, there's not a manual for this thing we call life. Story 25. At 24 years old, I decided enough was enough. I dropped out of civil engineering college and moved across the country to put down new roots and did an apprenticeship. No old habits, no toxic friends, no bad things I've done haunting me, a whole new life. In the first year, I bought a condo and went to school. Got a brand new truck and a beater car. From here on out, I felt refreshed and it shows. My relationships are stronger than ever, both with significant others and with friends. Story 26. Around 20, I decided to enlist. I thought I was going to live with my parents forever, being a student forever. The military changed all that, but getting it together is never a one and done. It is a lifelong journey. I just finished my degree, bought a house, and got engaged, but I still have areas I need to work on improving. There are still some areas in my life that I need to get together. I would also like to add to never compare yourself to others who seem like they have it together. People have different goals and definitions when they talk about getting their life together. Story 27. Nobody has their life together. It looks like they do, but they are on the verge of collapse at all times. My life is currently the best it has ever been, but I'm always chasing time, money, and other things to keep it from falling apart. Story 28. 23 for me. Turns out having a kid puts everything in perspective and makes you realize working your dead-end job won't cut it anymore. You need to go back to school to actually make something of yourself. Story 29. I've worked hard since I was a youth, so I would have a solid future, but relationships are where I was immature and had a lot of drama. I think I learned to be totally honest and set good standards for myself in my upper 30s. Before then, I would be with any woman who gave me attention and wasn't always honest when they asked me something. No more of that, and life is much better. Story 30. A hard number? 32. After cycling through several jobs over 10 years in wildly different fields, I found an opportunity to buy a business and become my own boss. Almost a year in now, and I have never been happier. Story 31. Marriage will do that to you. And once children come along, it's pretty cemented, for me anyway. But that doesn't mean I'm not still working to refine myself further. That'll never cease. Story 32. Late 20s. Could see it stretching to early 30s. I feel like that's when you grow into an actual adult. If you don't have it together by then, though, good luck. Story 33. At 15, I got my first job and became pretty self-sufficient for daily expenses. My 20s were hard. Moving out, getting married, paying student loans, and having kids, getting laid off at the very start of the recession. But I don't think I ever let things fall apart. Story 34. I had my life together when I was 24, had a job, a place to live, paid bills, and had a good social structure. I left it all to go back to my home country, and since then I have traveled to Southeast Asia many times where I met my fiancée. Now I'm 32, living at home with my mother, working a dead-end job that I do enjoy some days, but ultimately it's not what I want. Right now, everything is up in the air and I'm bad at managing it. My fiancée and I have been apart for 3 years and there seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel. I have a breakdown every so often and cry myself to sleep feeling stuck in this place. I just feel so lost and down. I have no friends and I keep telling myself to get it together. I don't know.